It's Joe Rogan. You got a fake meow now? Son of a bitch. It's supposed to be meow. Meow, by the way, is welded into the desk of the new studio desk. The foot of the legs of the desk. I had it constructed by an artist, our friend Eric, and he did a sick job on it. And one of the things that he did just on his own is write the word meow on the side, because this silly bitch says meow at the beginning of every podcast. You gotta appreciate the little things in life, ladies and gentlemen. And Brian brings the bizarre little things. It's the extra flavor. It's the salt on the meat. You know what I'm saying, son? Which is Dave Asprey is here. We're gonna get to the bottom of things. We're going to get educated. We're going to get experienced. Ooh, that's my new tagline at the beginning of every show. It's as cheesy as it gets. We're going to get
Joe
experience.
Rogan experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Dude, we're getting experienced.
We just got out of it from being on it, and now we're getting
We're
experience.
back in it. We're experienced, dude. That's how I'm feeling that right now. Dave, thanks for coming, man. Really appreciate it. Tate Fletcher is your number one fanboy, so would you please give Tate a big shout out at the beginning of this podcast?
Tate, you rock, man.
Tate has bulletproof everything. Every fucking tweet he sends, stay bulletproof, my friends. That's like he's like the most interesting man in the world, but it's about bulletproof, instead of stay thirsty.
He totally rocks.
He loves you, man. He's got a fucking serious man crush on your ideas. Homeboy came in with a jug. I love Tate. 'Cause me and Tate both have the coffee addiction. I love him for a bunch of reasons, but that's one of them. We both have the coffee addiction. And Tate comes in with this fucking ridiculous, camping for a month mug filled with bulletproof coffee.
Nice.
And he poured me some. It was pretty badass, man. That was my first experience with bulletproof coffee. And this is your creation.
Yep.
And for folks who don't understand what bulletproof coffee is, what it consists of, what's in it exactly?
It's low toxin coffee, which has a different mental effect than the normal stuff, the swill you can just buy on any street corner. You blend it with grass-fed butter that has certain fatty acids, short-chain fatty acids your brain needs for anti-inflammatory purposes, and you blend it with either coconut oil or MCT oil, which is an extract of coconut oil that's 6 times stronger. And you blend it. It gets foamy and frothy, just like the best latte you ever had. It doesn't taste gross. It doesn't taste buttery and oily. And when you drink it, you are full for 8 hours, and you have this incredible focus, this mental focus. It's just insane.
Whoa. How's that possible?
Sounds amazing.
What is it doing? It's just it's causing, it's like a synergistic effect with the butter and the oil and the coffee. It makes the stimulant last longer. Is that what it is?
Hey, it's Dave Asprey again. I'm going to show you how to actually make unsalted grass-fed butter coffee, which just happens to be the healthiest and creamiest way I know of to drink coffee. I have here on the table freshly brewed trifecta Ethiopian coffee, which is some of the best I've ever had. I have here a piece of grass-fed unsalted Kerrygold butter. Kerrygold butter is made in Ireland. And in Ireland, it's actually cheaper to feed cows grass instead of grain. So the fatty acid content in this butter goes right to your brain in a healthy way. It makes you actually feel more energy. It makes your brain and your memory work better. You can see my blog post about the butter coconut experiment from a psychologist who actually measured herself. And you'll see over here on my laptop, this is a handy dandy blender. It weighs a few ounces. I keep it in my backpack. Butter, coffee cup, butter in coffee cup. Add the coffee. Well, the hunger part happens because your body's getting the short and medium chain fatty acids that are really hard to get in your diet. So because you're doing that, you're already getting a big boost there. And then we believe that it probably helps to escort the terpenes that are inside coffee, like caffestrol and cowahol, the psychoactive compounds that are not caffeine. We think it helps those go into the brain. And the other reason that I'm theorizing that it gives you this kind of boost is because the small drops of fat that are formed when you blend it are called micelles. And they absorb better into the body, and your body can burn MCT for energy without any digestive process required at all. This is a thing that bodybuilders use to get lean and ripped when they're in the shedding phase. It also happens to cure Alzheimer's disease and makes you feel really good.
I put it in my kale shakes. I put 4 big teaspoons
Nice.
or tablespoons of coconut oil, and it tastes good.
Yeah.
It's got a good taste to it.
Everyone should be eating coconut oil unless they're allergic to coconuts. It's that straightforward.
Do you remember when they were saying that coconut oil was bad for you when we were kids?
Just like the American Soy Association got one in there.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, they did a 6-week study of hydrogenated coconut oil versus their crap oil. And then, what do you know? It raised cholesterol. And to this day, you ask the average 40, 50-year-old American, you say coconut oil, they say cholesterol. And you're like, there's none in there. Like, it's cholesterol free. Not that it's a problem if it has cholesterol, but...
Salt, that's another one. People are so silly with salt. Salt gives you high blood pressure. Salt is a fucking mineral, you dummies. It's an essential mineral, and you can have too little of it. Salt is not making you fat. That is so crazy. That thought that salt is making you fat has always driven me fucking bananas. It's going to give you high blood pressure with all that salt.
So do you know that that it raises your blood pressure within the error margin of a blood pressure cuff? That's it. It's meaningless.
Why does everybody connect salt to high blood pressure?
It has to do with the marketing of anti-blood pressure drugs. So they found out back in about 1960 that was how that was a way to lower blood pressure. Well, if you get people to basically pee more water out, their blood gets thicker, so then their blood pressure goes down. So they started looking at salt's effect on that, and they went down this path. And get this, in 1997, the Lancet Medical Journal, which is kind of a badass one, they published a whole thing about how the salt myth didn't work, how there was scientific fraud, how people probably should have gone to jail for spending taxpayer money and making up data. And yet, to this day, you still hear government campaigns to lower salt consumption, knowing full well that it makes your adrenals break when you don't get enough salt. I do 10 grams a day. I have for 10 years. I carry a vial of it around with me. I wouldn't think of starting the morning without a teaspoon of salt.
Whoa, every morning you
Throw it
start
in your
off
shake,
with
man.
salt?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a reason for it.
Okay. What kind of salt? What's the best?
I like the Himalayan crystal salt.
It's dope just because it comes from the Himalayas, son.
Absolutely.
Right?
How could it be
Anything from
bad,
the Himalayas is dope.
Yeah.
Bringing back some fucking Himalayan salt, son.
And there's other kinds. Any kind of sea salt's going to do it, but there's less pollution in the Himalayan stuff. And I like the idea that it's mined by one-armed monks. It's just
Is it really?
No.
Grass-fed salt.
So what is the benefit of putting the salt in your body every morning?
Here's what happens when you wake up in the morning. When you first wake up, your body says, and this is like your reptilian brain, the low-level parts of your operating system you don't pay any attention to.
Oh, they mean the whole thing.
Exactly. So you wake up and it says, this body is going to stand up in a minute. And when it stands up, I've got to have enough blood pressure in the brain. If I don't have enough blood pressure in the brain, he's going to pass out and a tiger's going to eat him. So this is like a survival level imperative inside your body. So what does it do? It goes to your adrenal glands and says, hey, buddy, could you crank up some cortisol and could you change the sodium to potassium ratio? I need you to find sodium, which is hard for people to do. That's why we used to pay our soldiers in salt instead of in gold. And then it says crank down on potassium, crank up on sodium. If in the morning you take your sodium and you drink it soon after you wake up, your adrenal glands don't have to do all that work. So then you have that adrenal function for the rest of the day to feel good. So anyhow, what's happening here?
Sorry, folks.
Your adrenal glands are more relaxed. I actually recommend this especially for women when they're pregnant because they have enough stress already. I have a book coming out in January about like how to have better genes and bigger brains in your kids starting even before you get pregnant.
Knowing this, having this knowledge in your head, does it infuriate you when you see these lower salt, campaigns and you hear people talking about it, like, low salt foods? Like, what is that?
It used to infuriate me, but to be honest, I've done enough of the meditation, the brain hacking. Like, I don't get mad at stuff like that because it's not worth the cost of getting mad. But what I do is I do something about it. Like, that's why I started the Bulletproof Exec blog. It's that there's a lot of this knowledge. I used to weigh 300 pounds. I was profoundly unhealthy for the first half of my life. Wow. And no one taught me any of the things that my body can do. It's just the knowledge wasn't out there. And now it is, but there's credibility problems. And I'm like, look, I'm a pretty successful guy, and I wouldn't have been this successful if I hadn't learned all this stuff. So here it is, and it's free. I just give it to people. I've got 7 people working for me now doing this.
Wow. So you were 300 pounds, and how old were you when this was going on?
Let's see, I hit, at 23 years old, I hit 300 pounds. 297, actually. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's big. What was that like?
I mean, it sucked. I was fat as a teenager, too.
Terrible diet.
Well, I thought I was eating the right stuff. In fact, during that time, I worked out 6 days a week for an hour and a half a day. What? And I ate 1,800 calories. You know what? If your hormones are jacked, you're not going to lose weight. I did eat less than my thin friends. I just couldn't lose the weight. I was tired all the time, too.
And did you have thyroid? Anything with your thyroid?
I did have some thyroid issues. But it wasn't just thyroid. Like there's all kinds of toxin and even like swelling that happens in the body. If you have chronic inflammation turned on, you're going to be storing a third of your fat. Maybe it's not even fat. It's just like tissue inflammation. So for me, I had to figure out what was causing my inflammation and what's your cortisol level. So there's all these delicate hormones that you manipulate through your food and through your environment. And the idea that calories in, calories out matters, I tell you, I ran this experiment. It was a little crazy. I know that the calorie thing is completely broken because we're not robots. We're not like a car. You put gas in and you get so many miles as long as the wind resistance is the same. So I thought I would eat 4,000 calories a day. I'd sleep 5 hours a night or less, and I'd stop exercising. And I thought maybe I'll gain, a couple pounds in a month or two, and I'll say, look, I should have gained 10 pounds. I gained 2 pounds. I went for 2 years. I posted a picture of a six-pack that grew during that time. I should have weighed 616 pounds after 2 years of this program, not counting the sleep deficit. And I weighed 210 at the end of it, and actually was more muscular than I was before. Of course, I was drinking bulletproof coffee. I was doing bulletproof intermittent fasting, which I developed during that time, which is intermittent fasting, but you have only fat in the morning, which gives you this huge boost, the one that Tate was talking about when he was here with you. So you can do all these crazy things with the body, but I'll tell you flat out, like, fat doesn't make you fat, and calories don't make you fat. Calories fuel your brain, though. They're useful, but they're not a very good way of measuring your intake of food.
So what is it? How does someone get fat then?
It turns out things like leptin resistance, things like inflammation in the gut, and things like insulin all play a role there. What happens is your mitochondria and your cells also can get weak. You actually get used to having to eat every 2 hours. This idea of frequent snacking to keep your energy up, what you're doing is you're teaching the body to actually need to not be able to store, to not be resilient, to not be able to store any kind of calories at all. What I do is I teach my body to burn fat, and I keep my calories at least 50% of my calories are coming from fat, and most of that is saturated fat with some omega-3s mixed in. And what happens there is I can eat pretty much as I can stand, and I won't gain any weight that way. So it's simply what causes obesity isn't one single thing, but I will tell you one of the unknown things that is a major contributor is synthetic estrogen in the environment. A lot of that comes from mold in our food supply. It's called zearalenone. We actually purify it and feed it to industrial beef. We put it in a little waxy pellet in the cow's ear. And here's an example of how much this stuff works. You use zearalenone, it can increase what they call feed efficiency for livestock by 30%. Feed efficiency means if I don't give them this drug and I give them a pound of food, they gain, however many ounces of fat or meat that the cow is going to gain. You put this pellet in their ear, you change their hormonal function, they gain 30% more weight on the same amount of food. That stuff is fat soluble and it bioaccumulates. You do not want to be eating hormone-treated beef that was treated to get fat really, really quickly. So we know flat out, just because in animal husbandry, if we can change the calories in, calories out equation by 30%, why couldn't we do it in humans? And the answer is we can. And that's why every time someone tells me, measure how much you eat and measure how much you exercise and you lose weight, it's the biggest myth. I have a whole big research, 30 references, blog posts about that. It's just not true. It never was.
So when someone drops their calories down and exercises and starts losing fat, well, what are they doing?
You can do it for a little while, but here's what happens. And I can tell you this because I did that lots of times. You lose 25 pounds, you gain 25 pounds, you lose 25 pounds.
So it's a slingshot sort of a thing?
Yeah, and there's something called epigenetics. And epigenetics is one of the main subjects of this book that I wrote. And it's awesome because epigenetics shows how the environment changes the expression of your genes. And you get signals from the environment all the time. And two of the biggest signals that you can ever send your body that change the way you actually methylate your DNA are there's a threat, there's something chasing me and it won't stop. And you do this by going for a run every single day without rest, instead of practicing high-intensity interval training or instead of giving yourself some recovery time. There's a lot of athletes and even non-athletes who are just plain overtrained. They don't get enough recovery time to actually build the muscle up that they should build because they had to go rip it down again by lifting the next day.
Right.
So that's one signal, which is that there's a threat to my species because I keep getting injured on a daily basis. I keep having to run. The other signal you can send is there's a famine. And you tell your body there's a famine by eating low-calories or low-fat diets. When you do that, it changes your gene expression. And we know that people who went through a famine, that their grandkids have a 2 to 3 times higher chance of getting type 2 diabetes. This stuff passes down through the generations. So I'll tell you flat out, if you're going on especially a low-fat vegan diet and you're planning to reproduce, your kids are going to be weaker than they would have been before. And the evidence there is pretty darn strong. It's a multiple generation effect.
Wow. So a vegan diet is lacking in what?
It's lacking in saturated fat, for one thing.
Is there a way to make up for it with a vegan diet if you're conscious about it?
You can get some in coconut oil, but coconut oil does not have conjugated linoleic acid. It doesn't have a lot of the micronutrients that are present in animal products. You can probably get by on a very careful vegetarian diet, but in terms of being like fully optimal, as in kicking ass at the maximum level of what the human body can do, it's going to take more than just egg yolks. It's going to take some steak, and it's going to take some lamb, and it's going to take some cod liver oil and things like that. If you're going to be 100% vegan, I know enough people now who've posted on my blogs, even some close personal friends. One of them was a black belt in Aikido. He went vegan, and 18 months later, he's allergic to everything. Like, he had to go back, but it seriously just decimated his health. So it's a careful thing to do.
But I know people who do it, and they're very healthy. Guys like Mac Danzig, he's very healthy, and he's been a vegan for years.
There definitely are some very healthy vegans. I'm friends with some.
Aaron Simpson, one of the guys who fights in the UFC, very healthy guy. He's a vegan.
How old are these guys?
Aaron, I think, is 36, 37.
So I'm really curious
Mac is younger.
What their blood work looks like. I'd love to see like an anti-aging panel from one of those guys. I don't know if any of them has ever posted it, but I'd love to just go through it and look at their triglycerides from all the fructose they eat. I mean, that's one serious thing. Their C-reactive protein. Every anti-aging physician I've worked with, and when I say that, I run an anti-aging nonprofit group called Silicon Valley Health Institute, svhi.com or .org. We've been around for 19 years, bringing guys in like Aubrey de Grey, other like big-time anti-aging people to give lectures. And to a T, every single one of them except one has said flat out, I won't take a vegan patient because I cannot make them age less quickly. Like, it just doesn't work. And these are guys who like see 10 patients a day with carefully demonstrated panels. The bottom line is I would love it if the vegan diet was safe and effective. I was a raw vegan for about 4 months, and after that I became a raw omnivore for another 6 or 7 months before I went off to Tibet and China. I'm not eating raw yak in Tibet.
No?
No, I just,
good?
I was kind of hanging out from the mud wall. I'm like, you better cook that.
Yeah. Yak, huh? What does yak taste like?
It's actually awesome. Some of the best meat I've ever had.
Really?
It's better than grass-fed beef, even like the best primo grass-fed.
Really?
Yeah.
Yak, huh? Well, you would think people would know about that.
Well, the problem is it only eats some kind of weird moss that grows at high altitude, and it dies when you bring it to low altitude, so it's kind of a constrained supply.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
It's a seriously tough animal, though.
Yaks. This is an incredibly fascinating subject to me because I've always wondered, like, what it is about certain people. They store so much fat, and certain people just stay lean no matter what. Some of that obviously is genetics.
Yep.
But what is wrong with their diet that takes a person and just it blows them up to 350, 400 pounds? I mean, there's got to be there's a critical issue, right? Is it sugar? Mm-hmm. Is it what is it? Is it pastas and carbs that turn to sugar?
It's actually sugar plus inflammation. So it's that combination of omega-6, like excess omega-6 oils, plus sugar and corn syrup and things like that. What you're doing is you're basically just completely wrecking the metabolism when you do that. Omega-6 oils have lots of polyunsaturated bonds. I'm talking corn oil, canola oil, stuff like that, and vegetable oil. What happens there, soy oil is another one, every unsaturated bond in that oil can oxidize, and what oxidizes it is oxygen, heat, and light. So most of these oils get oxidized before you even eat them, but in the body, you try and make cell walls out of them. And when that happens, you end up with less flexible cell walls that aren't able to express the insulin receptors very well.
Right.
So we end up with lots of problems like that because we end up getting these oils that oxidize easily. When they're oxidized inside the body, they make free radicals. So you get general systemic inflammation.
We are exposed to a variety of environmental stresses that affect our health. That exposure increases the number of free radicals in our bodies. Free radicals are molecules with an unpaired electron in search of another electron. They roam freely in our bodies, seeking out and destroying our healthy cells. Left unchecked, high free radical levels have been linked to a number of diseases, including diabetes, coronary heart disease, and cancer. Much like high cholesterol, They are a warning sign of trouble down the road. While a certain amount of free radical activity in our bodies is normal, a variety of factors can lead to unsafe levels. An unhealthy diet, smoking, stress, injury, toxins, and pollutants in our air and water. In reality, the culprit is us. Fortunately, there are ways to defend our bodies against the harmful effects of free radicals. Antioxidants help our body fight back and repair itself from the inside out. They give free radicals the electron they're looking for, stabilizing them before they damage our cells. Increasing your antioxidant consumption on a daily basis has been shown to lower free radical levels and promote better health.
And you can measure these levels. Like if you take a vegan and you look at their omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, it can be 30, 40 to 1. The average American on a crap industrial meat diet is at 40 to 1 right now. My blood levels are 1.28 to 1 of my omega-6 to omega-3 ratios. And that helps me to crank my inflammation way down, and it helps me to express healthy insulin receptors. So I don't get insulin resistance, I don't get leptin resistance. And that lets me, even now, I can go out, I can eat a relatively heavy sugar meal. I don't get a coma from it, even though I used to get a coma from it when I weighed 280 pounds or 300 pounds. I can also go 18 hours without eating, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And that's a pretty big difference from, I used to be the guy, I'm like, it's 11:45. We gotta end this meeting right now because I have to eat, because if I don't eat, I'm going to kill someone.
You can go 18 hours.
Yeah, in
No
fact, I
problem.
did it yesterday. Yeah, I had my last meal at 4 p.m. last night, and then again at 2 today. I guess that was a little more than 22 hours.
Now, what do you say about people that say that you should have like some sort of a post-workout sugary meal, some like a lot of glucose, high glucose, a little bit of protein? What do you think about that?
I've looked at that, and what you're trying to do there is you're trying to spike your insulin afterwards, because
Right.
we have insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, which causes you to build muscles. It's insulin-like because it has the same effects as insulin. So you eat a lot of sugar, spike your insulin, allegedly lay down more muscle. There's a couple studies I've seen, and I can't cite sources from memory right now, but what I recall from seeing them is that it looks like that the effect in IGF-1 probably isn't as good as you'd like it to be. What I do after I work out is I typically have a good amount of protein, a good amount of fat, and some starch. Not a lot, and I choose low toxin starches, which is kind of hard to do. I've got the Bulletproof Diet up on the site where it's a free, but it's an infographic that basically ranks foods based on 3 criteria. And if you get a bulletproof starch, like a white rice that's properly rinsed and cooked, or sweet potatoes, butternut squash, things like that, what you're doing is you're getting your carbs up enough that you can still even stay in a state of ketosis, maybe not. But what you can do there is you can reduce your stress hormone levels. And that eating right after you work out drops your cortisol. And if your cortisol doesn't get dropped in that post-workout window, you get a cortisol spike that lasts for 48 hours. So you're not going to get as much muscle. So it's absolutely critical to eat, but do you need sugar or do you need protein and fat? I would tend towards protein and fat with a small amount of starch.
So how did it get started that people learned how to drink chocolate milk? That was like the big thing for a while. It was like chocolate milk is the best post-workout drink.
You know, there's effects from milk on IGF-1 as well. Like milk will cause you to put on weight. It'll cause you to put on fat too. But if you want to bulk up, milk works for bulking up. Why chocolate milk? Because someone said, oh, let's raise the insulin some more. But God, look what's in chocolate milk. At least make your own with real chocolate.
What is in chocolate milk that's bad?
It's usually high fructose corn syrup. Like, what are you going to sweeten it with?
That's just terrible for you.
Yeah,
right?
and plus you've got problems with when you homogenize milk. You take those fat droplets that your body really needs and you put them through a super fine screen under pressure, which makes these extremely fine fat droplets that your body doesn't know how to handle that can actually enter cells. So homogenization can increase inflammation and it causes weird fat reactions that your body's not ready for. And also when they pasteurize the milk, you get casein. And casein is an inflammatory compound depending on how it's processed, but it's a very careful protein. I don't eat any casein. I know lots of people who are just plain allergic to it. And I mean, you've probably had people in here talking about the China study. That was an incredibly misrepresented book, but one of the key points at the very beginning was that casein can increase inflammation and be linked to liver cancer, and that's actually true. So, man, in order to get some protein, you're getting casein, which has been pasteurized, you're getting fat in the wrong form, you're getting high fructose corn syrup. I could probably formulate a better post-workout drink using MCT oil, like bulletproof low-toxin chocolate maybe. You could use honey even. Like raw honey has a different effect than, say, normal sugar does, and normal sugar has a different effect than high fructose corn syrup.
What is the deal with corn? Why do we use so much corn? It's high fructose corn syrup, and corn is in so many different things.
Everywhere.
Is that a lobby thing?
Yeah, corn and soy are lobby things, and also farm subsidies, right? You grow corn and soy, you get extra money from the government for growing this stuff. We've got the whole Monsanto connection there, which is just beyond evil from my perspective.
It's confusing. It's very confusing that it's real. It's very confusing that there's a company out there that's trying to make these genetically modified food and then force farmers to grow them. And when you see the suicide rates in India, they're absolutely stunning. I mean, it's like they're having suicides there every day, all day long. People are killing themselves because of Monsanto. There's been hundreds of thousands of suicides in India linked to Monsanto. It's really crazy. These poor farmers, man.
There's even more profound evil going on. And one of my pet peeves, things I talk about and I've studied extensively, is called mycotoxins. And these are toxins that form from fungus in the environment. And the combination of DuPont plus Monsanto is a shocking story. Like 30 years ago, DuPont made this pesticide called Benomil. And what Benomil did is it killed all fungus. Like 98% of fungus it touched would just die. Unfortunately, the other 2% would get like X-Man mutation turned on. So whole plasmid level mutation, it's called. What this means is that instead of one gene mutating like nature does, whole groups of genes would mutate. And get this, a fungus can change plasmids like baseball cards with other fungus. So what's going on here is we created X-Men fungus that reproduce every 20 minutes 30 years ago. And some of these new toxic molds that are like uber vicious, that poison people in their houses and all, and I've had that happen to me. Stachybotrys and aspergillus in your kitchen will mess your head up, sometimes permanently. And what's going on is Benomil made these toxic, but then you spray Roundup on soil. Roundup completely disrupts the soil microbes. These are like the probiotics of the planet. Like our soil health is really important. So now you get mutated X-Men stuff growing in the soil, and then you piss it off with Roundup. You get 500 times more toxins. And then that mold that's left, Fusarium, grows in the corn. In fact, it's a major pest for corn in the U.S. You get dried corn with toxic mold-forming Fusarium in it. A majorly large percentage. I don't know for this year. Some years it's up to 98% of corn has this toxic mold growing in it.
What?
It's crazy stuff. And this is not like any kind of weird, conspiracy theory thing. This is documented in agricultural science. Just no one in biochemistry that I know of tends to read the studies on mycotoxins because they're all like off in agriculture land instead of in health land.
So you're saying that 98% of corn has this mycotoxin in it, and it's not killed by any production process, turning into bread or turning it into cornbread or tortillas or anything like that?
It's a myco, not micro, M-Y-C-O, like as in myco, like mushroom derived. Yeah, like micelles, right. And some of it is killed. We've heard of these mycotoxins before. Aflatoxin, everyone knows that's a bad one in peanuts. Or penicillin, like a tiny little capsule of penicillin, which is just mold extract, has this profound effect on your body, right? Well, there's other stuff out there that has a profound effect on your body at a parts per million level. And I don't know if this year 98% of corn that's the maximum I found in my data, but at least a third almost every year in the US of dried corn product that's out there, like animal feed, like masa, like corn tortillas, has stuff in it. And Fusarium makes 3 classes of toxins that mess with your brain and with your hormones and with your protein formation. And that's why on the Bulletproof diet, I look first at macronutrients, and then I look at anti-nutrients like mycotoxins and heterocyclic amines and all the others. And you got to be a little careful on your food. If you want to like really kick ass and be mentally focused all the time, these are the things that get in there and muck with your head. Some people are more sensitive than others, but if you reduce the level of these things in your diet, you think better. And that's one reason you do the Bulletproof diet in the morning. All you're drinking with Bulletproof intermittent fasting is low-toxin coffee, low-toxin butter, and toxin-free MCT oil. You do that, you've had nothing messing with your head, only good stuff, no bad stuff.
That is absolutely fascinating. So everyone's being poisoned, essentially. Everyone who's eating all these corn products is being poisoned.
Yep, at low levels, they are. And the links between heart disease and cancer and mycotoxins are very well established. In fact, the WHO researcher who's written the most research of anyone on mycotoxins has a whole book this thick called Fungal Bionics, where he cites 900 different studies about the links between atherosclerosis and cancer. That's heart disease. Direct quote from this author. He says, "There is a known cause of atherosclerosis, and it is mycotoxins." Pig farmers know this. They know that if they get these grains that have mold growing in them, they have test kits they can buy where they test the grain, because they know they feed too much grain to the pigs. The pigs will get lesions in their arteries, or the pigs will lose their litter before they can deliver it. But what they do is they wait till the pigs are far enough along, then they feed the cheaper toxic grain to the pigs or the cows, and that fattens them up faster, and it costs less money. And the fact that some of that stuff is still in the meat, your problem.
Wow. So when you're getting pork chops, you're getting it because they eat grain.
It all depends on who fed the pig.
Jesus Christ. So when you're getting steak, you're getting that.
If you're not eating grass-fed steak, you're making a mistake. And that's one of the reasons you go on a vegan diet. If you're eating really good quality, non-moldy vegan food, you're going to get less toxins. Like, you compare vegan or vegetarian versus standard industrial meat-based, meat and hydrogenated fat and MSG diet. Man, I would rather be a vegan than a standard American diet any day of the week. The problem is that if I want to, for many, many years, have the highest energy levels, the most focus with the least amount of effort, you're not going to be able to achieve that on the vegan diet. And I don't think you'll hit your very top level of performance as 100% vegan. You could probably be mostly vegan, but you're going to be missing out on some things over time. There's pretty good research on my site about that.
It's unbelievable that you sound so convincing, but I'm too stupid to know if you're right.
Well, there's a lot of convincing vegans out there too.
Yes, there are. Well, there's a lot of people that tell you how much it changed their life, but my point with a lot of those people is that generally, and it's not all, but generally they come from a really bad diet, and then they start eating vegetables and they feel better. Well, of course you're going to feel better, but I think your point really does make a lot of sense as to what is the optimum way to do it. This is all stuff that I had never heard before. I'd never heard that all meat has some sort of low-level mycotoxin.
But it's only industrial meat. I have half a cow in my fridge. It grew up 3 miles from my house. It cost $3.50 a pound, and it's grass-fed. It never ate any grain. It was well-treated. It was butchered humanely. And it tastes awesome. It's really good meat. And
so what do you do? You have a big freezer?
Yeah, just they cost $300 at Costco. It's not even that hard to do. You just buy the freezer, toss it in the back of the car, bring it home, throw it in the basement. And you've got meat that costs a third of what it's going to cost, or 20% of what it would cost at Whole Foods. I've got links on my site. You can order 100 pounds at a time and just have it shipped to your house.
Jesus Christ. But doesn't it taste funky because it's frozen?
This is a funny thing about meat. When they hang meat to let it age, what they're doing is they're letting basically mold and bacteria in the environment work on the meat.
Right.
Well, the links between those molds and human health are not so good. Think about it. This is a mold that likes to eat meat. And Joe, you and me are made out of meat. So the incidence of low-level fungal infections, I don't eat dry-aged meat that's cooked really rare because there's still active fungus that likes to eat what I'm made out of in there.
What
I don't
the
think
fuck,
that's good.
Man? How do I not know about
That's
this?
how I burn calories, Joe, is this meat mold thing.
That's it? You just snort it?
Yeah.
You snort and mold.
So it turns out you want the freshest of anything. As soon as you kill it and you drain the blood, throw it in the freezer, and when you're ready to eat it, take it out.
How many hours from the time it's killed is it butchered and then frozen?
The stuff that I have, I actually specially requested it. It was about 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah.
So meat lays around for 2 days?
Yeah, what they do is they hang it in a climate-controlled environment, which lets all the blood come out. But typical, high-end steak, 21 days, sometimes up to 64 days.
Dry-aged.
Yeah, and then, dry-aged meat tastes amazing. I'm not going to even say that it's bad, but the difference in how dry-aged meat makes your brain feel versus fresh meat that's been frozen right away and then defrosted and cooked, you will feel like a different human being when you eat that stuff.
What is killed during the freezing process? Is there anything that's killed?
It's not about the killing, although it can kill parasites. They use that in sushi. You freeze sushi for a while at very low temperatures to kill parasites. What's going on is you're preventing the formation of these basically psychoactive compounds that form in addition to those nice yummy flavors that come from the yeast and the fungus sending tendrils into the meat. So that nice kind of soft, mushy, dry-aged meat, even if it's grass-fed, it has health impacts, including cardiovascular impacts, that are not present for fresh meat that was frozen.
Wow. But yet so delicious. Nature's fucked us again, man.
I still eat bacon. I have no problems there.
What is the thing? Why does because dry-aged does taste pretty damn good.
Here's how we discovered dry-aged, right? How long have we really had good freezers?
Right.
Not that long. So you're going to kill a giant cow 100 years ago. You're going to hang it in the coolest place you can find, and you're going to whack off pieces of it and eat it kind of cow on the cob, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, back then they must have eaten a lot of rotten meat, just trying to keep it going. Now, did that have anything to do with the appendix, or was the appendix for processing fiber? What was the appendix for processing?
I don't think that there's a scientific consensus there. I've heard
really?
it's a store for probiotics, potentially like the healthy bacteria, like that's like the little storehouse for them. But I've never heard a definitive, this is why we had an appendix that everyone agreed with.
In simple terms, probiotics are just good bacteria that can help your system to work more effectively. We often think of bacteria as being bad and we are obsessed with using antibacterial products. But in fact, inside your digestive system, they play a very crucial role. If I could look inside your intestines, there's about 400 different types of bacteria, and they weigh well over 1 kilogram in total. They're involved in breaking down the end products of our food and helping with the digestive processes, even releasing some nutrients for us. What's important, however, is the balance between good and bad bacteria present in the colon. The bad bacteria inhibit digestive processes, can produce toxins, and end up making you feel sluggish, bloated, and irregular. The good bacteria, on the other hand, will help the digestive processes and help you to feel much more energetic and feel better.
So humans for a long time had to be able to deal with a certain amount of fungus and bacteria,
We
just
still
evolutionarily.
do. In fact,
right?
Wired magazine just published this whole thing. Like, we've been focusing on the genome of the bacteria in the gut, and we just noticed there's just as much fungus growing in your gut as there is bacteria, and we don't know anything about it.
Jesus Christ. How weird is it that we have organisms that are essential to human survival and they live inside of our intestinal tract? They're essential. If you don't have them, you will die.
The question is, are they apart from, I mean, that's a part of being human, right? If you're
being
dead
human.
without them, they're just like part of your repair system.
Yeah, they're the soldiers. They're the little soldiers. That's what when I tell people about probiotics. I used to get sick a lot when I went on the road until I really started getting into kombucha is my favorite because it's easy. I like the way it tastes, and I'll drink a couple of those a day, and I'm covered. And it's made a huge, significant impact on how many colds that I get. I mean, they stopped. They just stopped.
I love it.
And the way I explain to people, I go, it's like when you eat healthy bacteria, it's like sending soldiers. You have healthy soldiers. They're going to go out and whack all the shitty things that you touch. Like, it really does work that way.
But now think about this. If you do that, you drink your kombucha, and then you go have a normal, ribeye that was fed industrial meat, it's got antibiotics in that meat. They use antibiotics because they make animals fatter faster. So that it's not that they're using it to keep them from getting sick. They just want the muscle striations. They want the fat to marble through the muscle. So now you're eating that, you just whacked those nice bacteria that you put in your gut. And that's why I'm kind of militant. When I go out, I'll eat fish, like non-farmed fish, wild-caught fish, long before I'm going to eat steak at a normal steakhouse. If they say, it's grass-fed, grass-finished steak, I'm like, load me up, I'll have 2 pounds of it. But the rest of the time, when I'm on the road, you'll see in my backpack, I've got, smoked sockeye salmon. That stuff is as clean as it gets.
So when you go to a restaurant, what kind of stuff you'd rather? But it's hard to even get wild fish, man. A lot of fish is farmed fish, like that weird salmon where they actually change the color of the flesh to try to.
That's not right.
When you get these prison bitch salmon, the ones that you buy in the supermarket, they have like this pale flesh. It's like they just like fuck it,
and it's mushy. It's gross.
They're feeding them pellets, And
the pellets are like soy and corn and antibiotics plus ground up sardines. They're environmentally destructive. Like, you shouldn't buy farmed fish on principle.
Yeah.
Because it's bad for the world. Like, our oceans are already screwed up enough. We don't need that.
So people often ask the question, are farmed salmon really dyed? And I think the first thing you have to do is look up dye in the dictionary. And dye says it's a coloring agent, something that's added to a material or a substance that's added to change the color. So if we go with that definition, then yes, farmed salmon are dyed. Now, in the wild, salmon get their color, their red flesh color, from the food they eat, mostly from crustaceans like krill. And krill, just like carrots, contains a substance called a carotenoid. And it basically is what makes different plants and animals yellow or red or orange. And there's a kind of carotenoid called astaxanthin. And astaxanthin is added to the feed, the pellets that are fed to farm salmon in open net cages in the ocean. Is it a natural substance? Well, it can be, but natural astaxanthin is 4 times the cost of synthetic. So according to one of the world's largest manufacturers of the substance, the vast majority, essentially all, their website says, essentially all of the astaxanthin that is added to aquaculture feed is a synthetic product derived from petrochemicals. So we're not only adding a color, the industry is not only adding color to farm salmon, they're adding a petrochemical product as a coloring agent. And that's added to the feed pellets. So when the farms are operating in net cages in the ocean, in the open ocean, any of the uneaten feed containing that chemical dye goes into our ocean. Which is just another reason why the farmed net cage salmon industry needs to get out of the water, needs to put an impermeable barrier between them and our ocean environment, needs to move into closed containment.
It's interesting. My grandparents met on the Manhattan Project, like in Chicago before Los Alamos. My grandmother's a master's degree in nuclear engineering and won like a lifetime achievement reward for nuclear engineering, like one of 2 women ever. So like I grew up in a nuclear family like this, but even they're like, could we stop blowing those things up everywhere? Like they're kind of useful in a war, but like maybe blowing up a few hundred of them around the planet isn't a good idea.
Well, have you ever seen there's an animated GIF file, or maybe it's a video that shows all of on the globe. It shows you a map of the world, and it shows all of the nuclear explosions in their correct order that have taken place, all the tests, and it's like boom, 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 and then the Soviet Union one's boom, boom, boom.
Wow,
see, like,
that'd be awesome. You should link to that.
Pull that up, right?
I want to see that.
See if you can pull it up. Video of all of the nuclear explosions. Just try to, you'll find it. But I've seen it. It's fast. There's been like more than 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100 nuclear explosions. I did not know that.
It's really scary. And some of the things that happen there, we have a kind of a rise in thyroid cancer. And, you get radioactive iodine out there. And these have an environmental impact.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we don't even understand, like low-frequency vibrations on the Earth's crust from those things. There's biological effects from the reverberation of the Earth's crust. You go to the Schumann resonance. When thunder strikes, you get this reflection between the ionosphere and the Earth's crust, and it creates basically a brown to 10 hertz. I forget the exact 9-point-something hertz frequency. And if we don't have this, like, we don't work very well as humans. And in fact, in the Russian space program, they actually figured out that they were not doing well at all. They actually replicate this inside the spacecraft now.
They make a rumble, like a sound?
You don't hear it. It's like an electrical thing. It's a super low-frequency EMF.
So this EMF that's given out by thunder and lightning actually has a positive effect on human beings?
Yeah, it's like a timing signal. If we don't get it, we don't do so well. It's right in the alpha brainwave spectrum.
Really?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I have a Schumann wave resonance creation thing in my house. Like, it's one of the things that lowers biological stress. When you have a Schumann resonance that your low-level biological, like electrical systems, can sync to, it lowers the stress. If you have like Wi-Fi routers and things like that all over the place, your body tries to like find a signal and it doesn't get one very well. And when it doesn't get one very well, it just raises your cortisol levels.
Your body's trying to find a signal. What do you mean by that?
So there's an electromagnetic signal on the Earth, and it sounds kind of goofy, to be honest, but one of the ways you can do this is with an earthing mat. And I kind of went out on a limb, and I started promoting these as like, this thing rocks. And what this is a mat that's made out of electrically conductive fibers. It's just silver woven into a sheet. And you plug it into the round part of the electrical outlet at your house. So just the grounding part, or you stick it into the earth, like drop it out the window on a wire and stick it into the ground. You do this, and it normalizes your cortisol excretion at night. Your sleep improves really dramatically, especially for jet lag. I absolutely will not travel without my earthing mat because I don't get jet lag at all anymore. Like, it's just a non-issue.
What?
This is craziness.
Lance Armstrong uses this on the Tour de France in order to recover faster. Like, you recover from injuries faster when you're grounded. And there's an electrical thing you can measure that's happening there. There's 2 effects. One is you build up a charge on your body, and you can just pick this up with a meter. We're walking around indoors. We're wearing shoes, like rubber shoes all the time. So we basically, just the air over our skin builds up a static charge. When you get, a spark, like in the desert, you touch some static electricity. That's an extreme example of it. But our bodies kind of work like big batteries. Like, we have different electrical fields and different electrical potentials inside the body. So when you spend about 20 minutes walking in grass barefoot or laying on an earthing mat, being on the beach, what you're doing is you're dropping the extra charge that's built up over time. And when you do that, you heal faster. You really do recover faster. It's profoundly amazing how well it works. There's cardiologists recommending this. There's a whole book written about this.
I have heard about people lying in the grass, sleeping in the grass.
That's why.
To help them heal.
Some of the most radical ideas are really the most simple. I mean, you look at grounding, for example, or earthing, putting your bare feet on the ground. You'll soak up lots of electrons because the earth is negatively charged, and our bodies are so full of free radicals from, anything from heavy metals to air pollution to trans fats. I mean, our body is being inundated with, a firestorm of free radicals. So you got to put the fire out. And you can put that fire out in many different ways. The earliest and the most primitive form of healing the body is putting your bare feet on the ground. I call it caveman medicine, or the barefoot revolution. When you go to a beach, or you take a beach vacation, or you go barefoot in the park, or you sleep in the park on your back, or you're looking at the stars at night and you're grounded, people say, I feel really good. It's like when people go on a vacation at the beach, they think, oh, no stress, plenty of sunlight, good restaurants. That's it partially. What's really happening is when they go into the beach, they're grounding themselves. And whether you're in the water or whether you're walking on the sand, and that really shifts the autonomic nervous system to a point where it's functioning better. And that's what it's all about. When you walk barefoot, you're literally soaking up millions of electrons in the body so you can detoxify the body. Whenever you take on electrons in the body, you're making the blood thinner. So instead of the blood being more like red ketchup, it becomes more like red wine. And we know that hypercoagulable states, sludgy blood, is the most common cause of stroke, heart attack, cancers, tumors, neurodegenerative disease, diabetes.
I thought this was such BS, but I used to fly to Cambridge, England every 6 weeks. I was a vice president at a company based out there. And I'd fly from the Bay Area out there. And that's the worst commute ever in terms of time zones. You're flying east. And I would go and I'd say, all right, in the morning when I land, I'm going to exercise to raise my body temperature. And that's going to be how I hack my jet lag. And one day I did yoga in the park because the only day of the year it was not rainy in England. And that time I had no jet lag. I'm like, yes, my exercise works. And the next time I do it in the hotel room, the same exact thing. And I had horrible jet lag. I'm like, what is it? And I finally understood years later what had really been the variable that I didn't know to look for. So this is one of the things, it's like a $70 little item, and you try it, and you just know it works.
I wish marijuana was legal to grow, because I went to a grow room once, and this dude had this, and he was legal. It was a legal setup. I go into this back room, and he's got this room larger than this room, and it's filled with these really happy cannabis plants. Mm-hmm. And they've been taken care of with the perfect fertilizer and the perfect soil composition, and there's misters that are going off constantly, and they're really healthy and vibrant. And you walk into that room and you feel them. And it sounds like hippie bullshit, but I wasn't even high. I walked in that room stone cold sober, and I was like, whoa. This is like they have a frequency. There's it's an intangible thing that I sense. I can feel it, but I wouldn't know how to describe what it's doing.
So I do a lot of work at that level with the biohacking I talk about. So you have this reptilian brain that's responsible for low-level systems in the body. It's the same thing a salamander has. And it senses stuff, but it does it so fast that you don't even know it happened. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you'll pull your hand away before you know the stove was hot. That's an example of this thing in action. So what it does is it picks up all kinds of stuff from the environment, a lot of stuff we don't even understand yet, but it does it, and it matches patterns so fast that you might just get a wisp of an intuition from it. But what's going on there is the animal part of you is totally picking up all these things, and you can train yourself to basically be more sensitive to what it's telling you, and you can train yourself and train it to behave better, because that reptilian brain is what gets us in a lot of trouble.
It's all how you know when someone's upset at you. When someone's upset at you, even if they're trying to pretend that they're not, there's something off. They're giving you a certain feel.
So now I'm going to sound like a total hippie wacko, which I'm not.
Too late.
Darn. So
you're on this show.
Fair point. I'll take that. So I'm an advisor to this company called the Heart Math Institute, and Heart Math makes a heart rate variability training device. These guys are Silicon Valley geeks. They spent 20 years looking at meditation and how you quantify meditation, what's going on in the body. And it turns out, by looking at the spacing between your heartbeats, you can totally change the way your brain works and the way your body works. And in the course of the research, they went out and they did some really heavy-duty science. And there's actually a magnetic field around your heart. It's tipped at like a 12-degree angle this way. It's shaped like a torus, like a donut. And they know which direction the fields move on it and everything. So it's the most electrically active part of your body is your heart. And get this. When a human walks into a stall with a horse, before they touch the horse's heart rate variability will change to match the human's. We have a field effect on the people around us, and it's an electromagnetic field that's heart-based. And like we can measure it. And people get pissed off when they hear this, and then they just think everything I say is crap. It's not. Like, A, I know the scientists who are behind this, and B, I'm a certified heart math executive coach. Like, I use this to take people who are super high performers, who are tweaking because of their stress, and to teach them to consciously basically use their prefrontal cortex, their human, most evolved part of the brain, to train and take control of the reptilian brain. And when you do that, there's measurable changes in the spacing of your heartbeats, and there's a change in the field around your heart as well. When you do that, that's what you're feeling there. If someone's pissed off at you, they could not say a word, and you might not even see their face, but you just have a feeling.
Yeah.
We also know
your body's letting you know some shit might be going down. I'm catching some bad smells.
And in fact, one of my buddies is a special forces guy, and he wasn't technically, he trained special forces guys. He was a long range patrol officer guy, and he told me one day, he said, Dave, what we learned out in the field, he said, if you're in someone's sights, you can feel it. He said, if someone's got a gun pointed at you, like your body heats up. Like literally, how the heck could this be possible? But the bottom line is we have all sorts of weird senses. We also know if we hook you up, Joe, to like weird galvanic skin response sensors, and then you're sitting there, if someone's staring at you, we'll be able to measure your body responding to the stare, even if they're staring at your back. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in our bodies we haven't even really explored yet.
Do you think those are evolving senses, or do you think those are just like really sort of intangible senses that we haven't quite defined?
They're not evolving senses. They're old senses. Those were there long before. I mean, what makes the frog move before the eagle dives for it?
Right.
It's those kind of senses. It's very, very low level, survival oriented senses.
You sure they're not evolving? They're not getting better, maybe?
I think what's happening is that our ability to access them from our prefrontal cortex is evolving, and that's one of the things I spend a lot of my own time on. I spent $20,000 and 7 days hooked up to an EEG machine to learn how to do like advanced Zen meditation that takes 40 years. I did in 7 days. And what you're really doing there is you're just learning how to have the prefrontal cortex, your human brain, talk to the low-level systems. And when you do that, like, you can unleash creativity and intelligence and intuition in ways that, most people aren't that familiar with.
What do you think is going on when you see people that are kids usually that are autistic but that are super genius in one area? Like, there was one kid that was he was composing like a symphony every 9 days or something like that, and they were really good. It was really good music. And then there's a kid who can look out a window and out of an airplane and draw the entire skyline as he sees it perfectly. Like, do you think that that's evolving possibilities in the brain that are just starting to sort of pop up?
I don't.
You don't?
And I say that. I had all the symptoms of Asperger's syndrome till I was in my mid-20s, like obsessive compulsive disorder, oppositional defiant disorder. I didn't know anyone's name. Like, I wouldn't make eye contact, all that kind of stuff. I stuttered a little bit. And I've done a lot of work with the autism community. In fact, one of my goals in this book that I'm writing, the Better Baby book that comes out in January, is to have less kids with autism, because you can handle neurological inflammation even in the womb, so there's less likelihood of it happening later. What we can do, though, is we can take a fully functioning, neurologically functioning adult, and we can hit them with really strong magnets in their head, and we can turn on autistic skills in non-autistic people. So you can suddenly draw the most amazing thing ever when you have a 10-ton magnet focused on your head.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah. So this is some serious brain hacking stuff.
So it's like that fucking dude from the X-Men, that Magneto dude?
I hadn't thought of it like that, Joe.
That's
but
exactly what it is.
It is.
He became a goddamn genius with that magnet helmet on, remember?
Yeah, and they're doing this like in neuroscience laboratories right now. Like, they have this really focused thing that shines a magnet and it activates a specific part of your brain. You could even do it to some extent with the stuff I have in my backpack, like the cerebral electrical stimulation or TDCS. You can run a current through part of your brain and turn it on. It wasn't turned on before. And as long as there's electricity there, it's turned on. So I think what's going on here is the wiring in autistic kids, they have chronic neurological inflammation that's environmentally mediated, and they usually have problems with the biology in their gut too. So what we can do, though, is we can learn, okay, these autistic kids have these skills. All of us have these skills too. They're just not trained and they're not turned on. if you use technology, you can train your brain to do crazy stuff in very short periods of time. So you can gain these kind of powers without having to give up the ability to socialize, for instance.
But a kid looking out a window and being able to capture the exact skyline and then put that to paper, as a, I don't even think he's a classically trained artist. I think he just does it. That is a really special skill.
It's a special skill, but I'll bet you that if we took 6 months and we use those magnets and things like that, we can explore how his brain works and teach your brain to do the same thing. There's a lot of things out there that are way teachable that you wouldn't think are. It's all just about interfacing with the brain, and the way we do it now is really inefficient.
If I have a gigantic magnet on my head, will I play better pool?
I think it depends on how much the magnet weighs, probably.
Well, I mean, as far as like the frequent, it needs something. It's not something you'd wear.
It's not something you'd wear. I mean, this
magnet
literally,
bracelets.
When I say 10 tons, I mean like this is a 10-ton thing that changes it. And there's various like articles from neuroscientists. They went in, they did the test, and they drew like the most amazing artwork. Or in the military, they do other things like that, with the electricity. But they'll say, oh, look, this person got a stimulation here, and they went through the shooting simulation, and they killed everyone completely, whereas the last time they had no skills at all.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So like your brain is like such an amazing toy. You can completely change it. But here's the thing. You want to maximize this performance, you need to myelinate the nerves in your brain. Myelination makes a nerve carry electrical signals 3,000 times faster than a non-myelinated nerve. So first you have to form the synapse, which is called synaptogenesis, and you do that through relatively short amounts of practice. The first time you learn to balance on your bike, right? Like you've learned how to do it. It doesn't take long. Mm-hmm. From then on, though, to get it so it's just automatic, that's what repetition does. And you've had a lot of pro sports guys in here. They talk about 10,000 times in repetition.
Yes.
The reason 10,000 times works is because you're myelinating. But here's the thing. What's myelin made out of? Fat, cholesterol, choline. So what you need to do is you need to be cranking up on those kinds of foods. And if you're going to be on a low-fat or a vegan diet that doesn't have any of the saturated fats and is low in choline, you're probably going to have a harder time myelinating. It's going to be harder for your brain to do what it was meant to do.
So synaptically speaking, it's harder to learn things.
Yep. If you don't have enough fat. You've got to have fat for your brain to function. I mean, your brain's made out of fat.
But you don't want the wrong fat. You don't want fat from a stupid cow that ate corn.
No, you don't.
They're all stupid.
Yeah, and you don't want fat that's been impregnated with toxins.
So you got to have grass-fed meat. You got to have it from some sort of a reputable source where you know that they're not feeding any antibiotics.
How do you put the magnets on the cows, Joe?
Dude,
awesome
you just
idea.
blew my fucking mind.
Yes. Magnet-fed beef. It's the
And
new
also,
brand.
the cows start walking up to the fence going, I think we can get through if we just knock one of these fucking things over.
Yeah,
the cows start getting
the
smart.
Magneto helmet with the horns on it.
Can you imagine if cows started figuring out they could just fuck us up? And the corn just grows there, just let it grow. It'll grow by itself. Are you concerned about like the toxic shit that's going to happen from Fukushima? Is that going to affect people that live here on the West Coast?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the plume, so to speak, is making its way over here now.
What does that mean?
We're actually finding huge amounts of wreckage that are hitting the shore now. In fact, up where I live in British Columbia, like it's a big thing. They're finding like
motorcycles and shit.
and like 100-ton like cement docks that sort of wash up, and they're like, how do I get rid of this? Like it's indestructible.
Oh my God, a cement fucking dock that was taken from Japan?
Yeah. It broke free and it floated all the way over here, and it's like on the beach.
What's amazing is that's a little baby tsunami. That ain't shit compared to what could happen.
Oh yeah. So that's happening, but they say that the stuff that's radioactive hasn't reached there yet. So
oh God.
They're starting to have Geiger counters on the beach, like for the junk cleanup crews, to see if they're finding this stuff. So the question is, what's it going to do to fish out here? I sure hope that my sockeye salmon is radioactive free. And that said, I think taking some
potassium
iodine, is a good idea. I do
well,
that anyway.
How does potassium iodine protect you?
Well, if the form of radioactivity that you're getting is radioactive iodine, it protects you from getting thyroid cancer years later. The problem is that some of the radioactive stuff coming out of Fukushima may not be in an iodide form, so iodine may not do much for you. There's some evidence that astaxanthin, which comes from krill, is pretty protective as well. So that's probably a good thing to take.
So krill, like krill oil, should you take it in that form?
I prefer krill oil to fish oil. I take krill oil, and I put, I buy a form that has astaxanthin in it, which naturally occurs in the krill. It's the stuff that makes krill red. It's just a really potent antioxidant that has a good effect on radioactive stuff.
This is a podcast that is going to test your writing shit down abilities, ladies and gentlemen. 'Cause this is a podcast where you're going to have to go back.
I use yak salt, by the way. Yak salt's a lot better.
They don't make yak salt, you liar. You're a fucking fibber. How dare you? Yeah, I got to get some, I'm going to go right to Whole Foods, right from here, and get some fucking Siberian salt.
Yeah.
Or Tibetan salt. Either one's good.
It tastes pretty good. Like I like taking friends who are not into health, and you're like, just try this salt. And like, why do you carry a white vial of powder over international borders with you?
Yeah. Do you ever get tweaked on?
Never. It's weird. I mean, I have like my upgraded whey protein and collagen powder and like all kinds of stuff that, I mean, I should look like I'm carrying kilos of random stuff. But
And
no
do
one
they
ever
ever
stops me.
ask you to test it, or they...
Never.
Nothing?
Actually, one time I've had my whey protein tested. More often they check my coffee because I don't drink hotel coffee. It makes me feel crappy. I drink my coffee. So I bring it with me, just like beans or ground up coffee. Every time, what's that? And then they open it, and it seems like they just want to smell it. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, it is that also the people hide drugs in coffee.
Yeah, it's the easiest way.
Because it stops the dogs from smelling the marijuana.
You know what's funny? I have a little. I
heard.
Yeah, so we've heard. I have a little canister I put in there that's got a desiccant that like absorbs moisture. So I mean, it looks like I've got a little canister of drugs inside my coffee. And twice I've had people say, "What's in there?" And like, it keeps the coffee dry, and they just don't stop me. And I fly like 100 times a year, like very often.
Wow.
I drink a Trenta of coffee every single day, and then I eat my first meal about 8 o'clock at night.
Nice.
Now, does it seem like I should put butter in my coffee now? Is that what you would recommend?
I would try it. I seriously would. If you're eating nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would try just some fat, no sugar, no protein. Mm-hmm. But when you do that, even just a tablespoon, you may find that you have a lot more energy throughout the day.
Really? And Splenda's okay, like artificial sugar, or just stay away from it?
Just do stevia if you're going to do anything.
Stevia?
Yeah, you can do xylitol too. A little bit of xylitol won't raise your insulin enough to matter. But if you do a lot of xylitol and you're not used to it, you'll get the runs. Like
Tate made the bulletproof coffee with stevia, and it was fucking delicious.
Delicious.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I was addicted to it.
Yeah, it's really good. But the problem is, you're a lazy bitch, and you're not going to, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're not going to fucking get some grass-fed butter and melt it and blend it.
You don't have to melt it, man. Just like toss the butter in the blender, pour the hot coffee right in there, and hit blend for 20, 30 seconds.
You need a slave.
I might do that.
You need to get one of you.
I'll get butter.
You'll get butter?
Yeah, you can get sent to your house.
Coconut oil too.
You know, you could get groceries now just delivered to your house. It's amazing, and it's not that much money. Like you just go online and pick out what you want,
Really?
and then it's just like, all right, we'll see you in an hour, like a pizza.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And plus, butter keeps forever. You can buy like 20 sticks of it and toss it in the freezer, and you'll have butter coming out of your eyes. Like.
So you want to make sure when you go to, like, organically raised beef is not good enough. It has to be grass-fed, organically raised.
I mean, you can take organic corn, organic soy, and organic Twinkies and feed them to an organic cow and still sell it as organic meat. Like, the standards are pretty low there.
Twinkies can be organic?
If they make one, you can feed it to an organic cow and it's still organic. There's no standards for what the cows eat. It's just whether or not what they ate was sprayed.
Oh, I see. Okay. So for a lot of folks, it's kind of difficult to find grass-fed meat in your area, isn't it? Like a lot of traditional supermarkets.
It is if you're in the middle of nowhere. But here's the thing: like FedEx and UPS deliver everywhere. It's cheaper to buy grass-fed meat online than it is to buy like a decent cut of meat in your grocery store. Like if you're going to buy grass-fed hamburger from some of the best places on earth, like I've tested different places on my site. Like I have a whole series about grass-fed beef. Mm-hmm. You can get it for $5 a pound. Like for grass-fed, perfectly treated animals.
Wow, that's fucking really good.
Yeah, and so like even if you're on a budget, like okay, eat a lot of eggs because they're cheap, and supplement with grass-fed beef. Eat a half a pound a day. It's going to cost you $2.50.
Do you ever buy just fat? Do you say send me some fat?
I've bought beef tallow. The problem
That's what it's called?
Yeah, and beef tallow is just rendered beef fat. The problem is that the rendering process is really finicky. Plus,
finicky.
Well, if you're going to render fat, you need to have enough water in it in order to render it so it doesn't oxidize. One of the problems, especially in the paleo community, and it drives me nuts, people are like, bacon. Like, okay, I love my bacon. I'm a bacon snob. I make my own bacon. But what you've got to do, though, is not overcook the oils. If it's spitting all over the place and there's smoke coming off the pan and your bacon's all crispy, you've oxidized the fat. And one of the things on the Bulletproof diet I'm really focused on is, how do I get inflammation down? So if you fry the crap out of your food, then what you're getting is inflammatory oils, even if they came from a good cow.
You're also getting delicious bacon. That's a problem.
You're getting delicious bacon, but here's the thing. You put your stove on like 3 or 4 and you cook the bacon for longer, all the fat melts out of the bacon. The bacon not going to get all super crispy. But
it's like a chewier bacon, right?
It's a little chewier, but it's not like bad chewy, like uncooked bacon.
Still awesome.
Yeah.
I like chewy bacon
Yeah.
too. But I do like that fucked up crispy bacon.
Potato chip bacon.
Totally. And like,
right?
it's like we have like fried mozzarella too, but like, you got to like choose where you go on the spectrum.
What is it about fried things that's so horrible for you? What does it do to your body?
It's mostly the damaged fats. They come in, your body's like, what do I do with this fat?
Just can't process it because it's overcooked.
Yeah, it's like how do I detoxify this? So it's basically spitting out free radicals, and then you try and build cell walls and hormones out of this fat, and your body's like, how do I do that? I don't have the raw ingredients.
Why is it so fucking delicious?
That I would love to know. I think what happens there.
For real, right? Like Kentucky Fried Chicken. God damn,
Well,
that shit's good.
that's
son.
MSG and gluten and stuff.
Whatever it is, I like it.
Yeah,
Is it really MSG and gluten?
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yeah.
MSG's in like everything.
You know what? It's goddamn wonderful.
Yeah.
Don't change a thing, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
We won't even talk about MSG and obesity after that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how to think about food in general, whether it's vegan or not.
But please explain though what it does.
Okay.
So like when your body takes in just like Kentucky Fried Chicken or anything that's
some with hydrogenated fried oils,
fried
right.
French fries and shit.
So we don't make healthy cell walls or hormones or anything else in our body made out of fat. We don't even burn hydrogenated fat very well for fuel. So basically, the liver has to detoxify it. So it goes to the liver. The liver's like, oh, God, what do I do with this stuff? So it starts using up the glutathione in your liver, which is the main detoxing enzyme. It starts trying to figure out how to break down these oils. Like, we're designed to take basically a raw animal in and process it and to break all those fats down and to reassemble them into our body. We're not meant to take those things in. So what you get is actually a big rush of white blood cells when you eat like heavily cooked meat and the oxidized fried fats. And it looks like an immune response. And your body's like, okay, I got to do something about this. So it does what it can to build healthy cell walls. But you get hungry after you eat fried food. Have you ever noticed that? Like you feel full for a while and afterwards like I want like sugar or something. The craving that you want for sugar there either comes from the MSG or it comes from your liver's like, could I have some more fuel to use to oxidize this stuff so I can excrete it now instead of building it in?
Wow. I never noticed that. I usually feel like such a fat loser.
Oh yeah, so you don't get like hungry like your next meal. You're like got like random cravings.
I
Okay,
get mad
cool.
at myself.
Just pound some more
Kentucky
kale.
Fried Chicken, yeah. But I do like it. Like when I like it like cold with hot sauce. Like I'm watching something stupid on TV. It's a good snack, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
The stuff tastes good. I don't eat that stuff anymore. I'm a delicate flower, I guess, because I weigh 300 pounds. I just feel like crap when I eat it now.
Yeah, I feel like crap when I eat it too, but I don't feel like crap while I'm eating it. That's the problem.
That's a fair point.
While I'm eating it, I'm loving it. I'm loving the crispy outside mixed with the hot sauce. I'm loving it.
So if they had Kentucky Fried Kale, would you try that?
Well, I eat kale all the time. I mean, I eat kale chips. I like a lot of kale chips. I've been eating those lately for snacks. But I don't know what they're making their cheese out of, because it's some weird vegan
It's usually
cheese.
it's usually nutritional yeast, which is, I don't even want to talk about what that does to your health.
Bad?
Yeah, it's bad.
God damn it. So fucking kale chips are bad?
No,
Cheesy kale chips?
Kale chips don't have to be bad. It's just what they use to make them cheesy.
Those motherfuckers. So cheesy kale chips are bad.
If they're using vinegar to make the cheesy flavor, they're fine. But most of the time they use nutritional yeast, and I have so many studies about
That's so
nutritional
ridiculous.
yeast.
How come I knew they tasted too fucking good?
Yeah,
I knew it while I was
Sorry,
eating them.
man.
I'm like, these cheesy kale chips are wonderful.
Why do you think they're so addictive? You're just like, yeah.
Really? You fucking... God damn it, vegan people. How dare you? How dare you get me to eat your shit that's bad for you, but yet delicious?
There's going to be a huge storm on Twitter about people saying nutritional yeast has B vitamins. And I'm like, yeah, and look at just go to PubMed and Google cancer and nutritional yeast and see what you find.
So the cheese is not a cheese. It's actually a clump of organisms. That's what the yeast is?
Yep.
It's like
it's like baker's and brewer's yeast, yeah.
Wow. And then how they make it like a cheese?
Well, it actually kind of has a cheesy flavor on its own. So they take that and they mix it with some other, usually like a nut, like a ricotta, like a vegan ricotta thing. I mean, I've been like I still eat a lot of like vegan dishes, just none of the weird soy and crap. Like if it's made out of raw vegetables chopped up finely with enough good fat in them, like avocados, that's some of the healthier food out there, right? So I'm a pretty good in the kitchen, like with raw food. And the problem is, you add nutritional yeast to it, it makes it inflammatory. It's just not very good for you.
Just so that's just those kale chips. You can get the regular kale chips, but that aren't quite as goddamn delicious.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Motherfuckers! I knew it couldn't have possibly.
You'll
been
be
really
fine
good for you.
if you die from cheesy kale chips. You're
It's
probably
not- he's not concentrating on dying, Brian. He's concentrating on maximizing your potential.
See,
and that's why I think this is so
Here's
fascinating.
the spectrum. Like, okay, if you ate cheesy kale chips every day for the rest of your life, compared to potato chips, you fucking rocked it. Okay, that's why everything on the Bulletproof diet is a spectrum. It's like, this is better than this, but like this is a lot better than this. So you don't have to be perfect. If you want to identify a goalpost for perfection, just kind of move in that direction. You'll be way better off. And most people fail in their diets because they feel like, oh, I did it wrong, now I lose. I'm like, you didn't do it wrong. You could have done it a lot worse. You could have done it better. But like, you're somewhere in the middle. And the truth of the matter is, I'm always in the middle too. Like, okay, I had a grass-fed cow, but was it slaughtered by an ordained minister? Hell if I know. But like there's probably some way of making it slightly more perfect. Was it massaged every day?
I wouldn't want a minister to kill my cow.
I don't
Get
know
away
if I
from
would.
my cow, dummy.
I actually tend to agree with you. Like, I don't know if I want my cow blessed by
I
some
don't
church.
need you to bless it before I eat it.
But there has to be like some bizarre thing you could do that's better. Like,
well, then again, if someone really believed in the blessing, maybe they would impart some sort of an energy into the thing. That sounds ridiculous, but what we were talking about before, about people literally having some sort of an environmental effect, some sort of an effect on all the people around them. That easily, you don't want some asshole killing your cow.
I'll tell you flat out, I do not want a cow that was tortured before it was killed. It changes the hormones. I think it changes the taste. And there's an energy thing there. I mean, call me a psycho hippie or whatever, but I've done a lot of intuitive training of my heart and of other parts of my body with electronics. And I don't know, there's something not right about some sadistic asshole, torturing your cow, killing it, and then feeding it to you. On its face, it's wrong.
Well, it is. And have you ever seen the way they do kosher cows?
Oh, it's brutal. It's those
fucked
machines,
up, man. It's crazy. Well, it's supposed to be done by a rabbi. It's supposed to be done by a rabbi. A rabbi's supposed to slice the neck of the cow, but you're supposed to do it that way. That's how you kill the cow. You slice its neck. It takes a while for them to die, and it's not fucking pretty. And there's videos of them trying to get up and falling down, trying to get up, and
you should see the kosher machines. They do have kosher machines.
Oh, they do now.
Yeah, as long as it's been blessed. Like, it's approved for kosher, but it's even worse because it's like the cows go in and they just rip their throat out with a rod.
God.
And it's one of the things where people think that Dave's the opposite of a vegan. I'm like, no, I care a lot about the quality of the animals I eat and the quality of the food I eat, but I also care about the quality of my life and what I'm going to do with it. And if I'm slowing myself down by eating inappropriate foods, there's also another thing we got to talk about animal suffering. I'm in Tibet, right? I spent a couple months, actually 3 months, walking around Asia, visiting monasteries and stuff. And I went to this monastery, a vegetarian diet for, actually it was vegan for 10 days. I'm farting like a machine the whole time. And then afterwards, I go to another monastery in Lhasa, and there's this giant yak skin on the prayer pole in the middle of the monastery. And so I asked the head lama guy, and I said, okay, you're a hypocrite. You say no killing, and you've got a dead animal hanging on your prayer pole. What's the deal? And he just looked at me, and he, the way Buddhist monks kind of do, he just kind of laughed, and he said, oh, one death feeds everyone. And then he walked away. That was his whole thing. And I thought about that. If I eat 2 pounds of grass-fed beef every day for a year, I kill 0.7 animals in the entire food chain. If I'm vegan and I eat soy nuggets, every bowl of soy nuggets is killing hundreds of animals because the tractor goes through and cuts down the soy. The soy. We're not even talking about what it did to the soil microbes, but it cuts down all the soy. It chops up the bunnies and their cute little faces and the turtles and the grasshoppers and the worms and all the other stuff there. And basically,